In the last 24 hours, Donald Trump has announced that he is preparing to send literally tens of thousands of undocumented migrants to Guantanamo Bay, of all places, essentially creating a massive modern day concentration camp. Here he is.
Signing an executive order to instruct the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to begin preparing the 30,000 person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay. Most people don't even know about it. We have 30,000 beds in Guantanamo to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people. Some of them are so bad we don't even trust the countries to hold them because we don't want them coming back. So we're going to send them out to Guantanamo. This will double our capacity immediately, right? And that's a tough place to get out of. Today's signings bring us one step closer to eradicating the scourge of migrant crime in our communities once and for all.
So there's a lot there, a lot that's awful, a lot that's dishonest. There's also the irony of a guy who should be in prison right now talking about how, I guess we need to put migrants into a place that's tough to get out of because they're gonna try to escape. These are regular people that he's gonna be locking up where they used to hold violent terrorists. And he's doing all of this as a massive symbol. And it will be a symbol, not necessarily the symbol he thinks it is, but it's certainly sending strong signals to me. I think it'll do that to the world. By the way, the lie first, we can talk about how utterly horrendous this is at a base level to do this at all. But he said, we're just gonna use the thing we have there for 30,000 people. Nope, that doesn't exist. No, there's a small former barracks. It has the capacity for up to 120 migrants, which is a smaller number. I ran the numbers 3 times to be sure. At recent years, it's held a few dozen people. They're gonna do 30,000 people there.
Yeah.
And if you are just really fast, think about how much that's gonna cost. Because estimates say if he actually plans to do this, it could cost $500 million, it could cost $1 billion or billions. And before you jump in, I just want to remind everyone of the fundamental irony here that these people are so utterly enraged that they think we're paying for migrants' housing and healthcare and all this stuff. You heard that during the election, that we're now going to spend billions of dollars to house them in Guantanamo Bay. We're gonna set up a massive complex so we can spend tons of money. Right now, every plane that lands in Guantanamo Bay costs taxpayers $100,000. And we're gonna think about how many planes it takes to get 30,000 people there and processed. So Francesca, we'll have more details, but this is, I think, a dark moment for America to set up a thing like this. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you made a really good point there. I think a lot of Americans don't actually understand how expensive it is to lock people up, right? So that's just number one, how expensive it is. Number two is compare that expense to what, let's just put it out there, what undocumented people, not using the word criminals, I'm gonna get to that in a second, what undocumented people do in this country and where they're rounding them up from. Malls, workplaces. So they are working for a business, they are paying taxes, they don't get the tax benefits often. They're paying into Social Security, don't actually collect Social Security if and when they hit 65. They are doing thankless jobs, oftentimes for very little pay, at places that rely in entire sectors and industries like agriculture, like meat processing centers that rely on often immigrant labor, whether documented or undocumented. But no, we'd rather rip that away from the American economy and spend even more money to lock up these so-called criminals in Guantanamo effing Bay. Now, the reason I say so-called criminals is because, John, we've realized that the jig is up. Yeah. The jig is up in a week. The jig was up way before. And Democrats have actually played into the idea that maybe we can separate the criminals from the people who are simply here without paperwork or overstayed their visas or don't have the ability to return back to their home countries and then go back because their families are here because of how ridiculous our immigration system are, how backlogged it is, and how there is no honest pathway to citizenship that is at all expedited, to say nothing of asylum and refugee, resettlement and all of these programs in which immigrants are highly vetted to come to this country. So like this is all just to say every 11 million plus undocumented people in this country are criminals by virtue of the fact that they are here without papers, period. And so anyone who thought it was just gonna be the criminals, and what do you mean? I thought it was just gonna be the violent criminals. No, buddy. You missed the entire thing. You are so naive if you thought it was just going to be violent criminals who are going to be deported and sent back, right? Or locked up into these detention facilities. And John, man, all the people who are gonna be making money off of this, it's just so cruel. It's like,
I mean, it's gonna be billions of dollars to effectively, they're gonna pay private prisons probably to set this stuff up. And not just this one, but the massive concentration camps on the border in Texas and all that. This is a massive expense, and the money is gonna be taken from taxpayers and given to friends of Trump, basically. It's gonna be people he knows, rich people who own these companies, that's what it's gonna be. It's
beyond
corruption as well as evil.
Inhumane it is to do this. You're basically putting undocumented people on equal footing with alleged terrorists, which, by the way, also innocent people who've been held at Guantanamo, okay? Tortured for decades, never charged, so kind of par for the course. But again, like, John, this is what they think of us. This is what they think of us. If you're a terrorist, that's the same thing as being undocumented. If you're a student protester, that's the same thing as being a terrorist. You are a terrorist. It doesn't matter. You're the enemy. We're just expanding it. It's so silly.
And we're gonna get to another aspect of what you just said a little bit later on. But yeah, and to your point, we covered it yesterday on the show. If we could bring up graphic one, Karen Leavitt was asked, when you say criminals, do you mean people who've committed crimes other than the fact that they have the civil violation of not having documents? And she said, no, they are by definition all criminals.
Yes.
All of them. Yes. Every kid, because remember, they don't consider them to be citizens. They strip that away. So they're all criminals too. Again, some student who overstayed their visa. Not Elon Musk, by the way, who violated his visa laws. He's not a criminal, obviously. He has the right shade of skin. But others, immediately criminals. And just ask yourself the question, why go to all this trouble to set up a camp in Guantanamo Bay? Why do that? Well, partly because for right wingers like his core, it's super cruel and they love the idea that people they hate are gonna be held in cruel conditions. And if that means we have to spend billions of dollars just so I get to have a rage boner against people I don't like, well, that's obviously worth it. That's the symbolic part. But also, there was a lot of photos of the family separation and all that last time around. It wasn't good for Trump and all that. So if you were planning to hold these people in really reprehensible conditions and maybe do terrible things to them, wouldn't it be convenient for it to be effectively impossible for the media to see it?
Sure.
Really difficult for anyone from Congress to see it happening.
But John,
I mean, the abuse that is gonna be at this camp is going to be historic.
The last thing, very last thing I'll say, like, given if this is a military private enterprise, because it won't just be private, it'll also be like, maybe it'll be like funded partially from the US military. Like the amount of waste and fraud, like if we're doing war on terror stuff to undocumented people, oh boy, I got trillions of dollars to tell you about that was straight up pocketed by private companies in the war on Afghanistan, the war in Iraq. This is in part and parcel of why the Pentagon fails its audit every single year. The money, the hospitals that were never built in Afghanistan, billions of dollars, just never built. So like that is what we're going to see. It is like the height of waste, fraud, and abuse, not just from the federal government, but also from any corporation that wants to make a buck.
Yeah, and when he absolutely explodes the deficit, explodes the national debt, well, they're not even gonna be talking about it, let alone making excuses for it. They won't have to because they won't talk about it, but here's a great way that you contribute to that while also sending a strong signal to the rest of the world that we are a unique force for evil once again. Thanks for watching our video. Did you know that you can support our show by becoming a subscriber? Just click the subscribe button and also ring the bell so that you get notifications when we're live or when we post new content.